Hello Internet, it's Daniel with Driving and Dragons, and I'm back again with another character hook for my GMs out there who are trying to put some stuff together. Today, we're going to talk about, well, we're just going to call it being in it. It's not exactly the term that I use for it, but in the stuff, so to speak. See you on the other side. So, an in the stuff hook, an in it hook, whatever you want to call it. This is, of course, the term is derived from what a lot of former military will say about, being in a combat zone, that they're in the stuff, and it's a rough area. And that's exactly what this type of hook is. Now, this one right here is one that tends to get accused of being a bit railroady. Even more so than a crisis hook. But at the same time, first off, it's not. And second, this one also tends to fit better in at the end of a campaign, or at the end of a big adventure chain, moving into another one. But it can definitely be used to start your campaign and to start your adventure off, even if it's a one-shot. It's a great one. It's actually fantastic for one-shots. But it follows the in media res concept of storytelling, which basically means that you start in the middle. It's not quite starting in the middle, but it's starting with action. And really, in this case, it is starting immediately after action. So how does this hook work? This hook works by putting the players in a state where they're kind of in a bad position, and then giving them something that leads them off. And by following the hook, it takes them into the challenge or the adventure, be it short, be it long. Generally, the way we're going to work this is it's going to be something that is appealing that ends up poorly, or something that looks bad that has to be tracked down that ends up being good. So, a classic example is the Frost Giant's Daughter, which is a Robert E. Howard Conan story. And in that story, at the very beginning, Conan starts in the snow, having fought a battle against the Aesir. The Aesir are dead. He's the last survivor. He's the only one left out of these two armies. And he's beaten, and he's tired, and, he's injured from battle, and he sees this beautiful vision of a woman. And she runs off. So he chases her. And that leads her back to her two brothers, who are kin to the Frost Giant, big, powerful fighters that Conan has to fight off. And she is the daughter of Ymir. She is the daughter of the great Frost Giant. This can work for you in your adventures in a lot of ways. It works really, really well in fantasy, especially higher fantasy where you have more magic. It works incredibly well if you're doing like low fantasy sword and sorcery, because if you're doing lower magic sword and sorcery type stuff, you have a situation where anything that appears even slightly mystical is going to be spectacular. Whereas if you're in the higher magic settings, you're going to end up in a case where players might be more immediately suspicious because magic is more common. But let's take your players. We don't start in a tavern. We start on a battlefield. Battle has been fought. Battle has been raged. Players are it's the players and one other guy who are alive. They have this one, they're alive. They find one guy who's almost beat to death, who's almost, who's on the door. And he talks to him about his family, about how he wishes he could go back to his wife, how the pain is great, how it's gotten so cold. Or, say they're in the freezing, frozen north, and all of a sudden he says, it's not cold anymore, as he's dying, and then he mentions a vision. He mentions he sees something. And the players may immediately think, oh, well, he just pointed out a spirit, he just pointed out a demon, he just pointed out something, good or bad, take your pick. Players may be thinking, hey, he's just hallucinating on the battlefield. The man's almost dead. But then they see it. They turn and look. Either it's because they turn and look when he points it out, or they lay him to rest and they get up and they turn around and boom, there's his vision. Just out of range, far enough away that they can't just immediately run to grab him, but, close enough that they can kind of see what it is. Maybe it's a cackling demon, a little dark figure with long claws, and, is heavily shadowed despite being outside in the bright sun with no shadows, and, cackles and eyes flash red and it skitters off. And you see it's got something in its hand that it's dragging off from the battlefield. Or it's the beautiful naked woman. Or it's a child that giggles and skips off the battlefield. A innocent girl who's very bizarrely just happy and skipping through this battlefield that the players just can't seem to catch. And it leads into your adventure. All right. Whether it's an illusion cast by a spellcaster, whether it's an actual fae or demonic or angelic creature, whatever it is, it either leads them off to a heroic deed that they need the party to come take care of, or it leads them into a trap or something that is designed for twisted pleasure. I always suggest that if you're going to use this, it should be separate from whatever the battle is. A lot like your Bad Moon hook, this is great for, we just finished a big battle segment that, been leading up to for the past 15 sessions. And I don't really have the next part done. I need something in the middle to kind of break up the story. We just finished this big battle. We know what happened. Here comes this figure. And what is it? It's an angel enticing the players to follow them to solve a completely different problem. But they see the opportunity. Or it's a demon who happens to inhabit a nearby mountain or a nearby swamp or something that sees the players after the battle and sees an opportunity to lead them off to torture for his own pleasure, or to sacrifice to whatever the case may be, whatever you've decided for your adventure. But it gives you a great opportunity to entice the players to go explore something in a way that, once again, you're not starting in the middle of the action. You're not starting with an action sequence like a crisis hook, but you're starting throwing them immediately into something that pulls them off of whatever you already described to them. You've described the battlefield and everything. They're not looking at that for the hook. You can also do this in a way that can very heavily challenge your players in another way. Pull out a D6. Roll that D6 or roll a different dice for each spell level, and your spellcaster has depleted spells. Take half of your martial character's hit die, or half of all the characters' hit die, and roll those dice to see how much damage they took throughout the battle. Maybe your fighter is at, less than half hit points. Take your ranger and roll a die to see how much ammunition he has left for your range character. Do these kind of things to see how the battle has affected them and say, hey, you're starting off with this, and this. It's like, well, what happened? It's like, well, y'all were involved in a battle. You clearly used some of your resources. Now you see the situation. Now you have a party with depleted resources starting off on the adventure, and it puts them, maybe now you can use some less epic, less high-level creatures to challenge them. This works really well, like I said, in fantasy settings. It can also work in other settings. If you're doing a cyber setting, like a cyberpunk type setting, it can be something that's causing their cyber optics or their brain, their neural network or something, their neural links to malfunction to cause them to see images. And it could be a particular cyber psycho who is screwing with them that way. If it's a spacefaring game like Traveler or Starfinder or something like that, it could be some kind of alien toxin that causes them to hallucinate. Or it can be a particular kind of Venus flytrap type alien that is, an anglerfish type alien that uses these neural or psychic implants or other creative, shape-changing, symbiotic forms to lead them back to something that's going to eat them or otherwise take advantage of them. There's a bunch of different ways it can be done, but it's another unexpected character hook that comes from, you set the stage with what's going on, and then the hook comes in like the old vaudeville skits from Looney Tunes. Bad singers on stage, here comes the hook, gonna yank them off to the side. That's how the character hook works. They're just getting acclimated to this scene that you've set up. They're doing a few things. They're looking around the battlefield. Maybe that ranger is trying to find some more ammunition. Maybe the cleric is trying to heal some of the party that are more badly hurt. Maybe the wizard is trying to find a place that he can rest and maybe study his spell book to recover some spells. And that's when this comes in out of nowhere. Maybe it only catches one of the player characters because they've separated to search the battlefield for different things, and it gets the fighter over here in the corner. And you just look and you see the fighter. The rest of the party just sees the fighter wandering off into the distance as he's following this vision. There's a lot of ways that this can play out that can create some fantastic stories, that can provide a hook that is very difficult to ignore, that can set your players up for their next adventure or their next job. Tell me some things. Maybe you've used something similar to this in the past. Let me know how it worked at your table. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Talk to you later.